Hi, I'm Greg Euland with Reynolds, and this is Connected. Today I have an in-person guest, in-studio guest. His name's Ken Wolf. Ken is the supervisor of our Security Operations Center here at Reynolds. Actually, just getting ready to move into the brand new facility. More to come on that. But Ken, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks for having me here.
Yep, absolutely. We thought it'd be a good time to have you on. October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I was learning as doing a little prep for our conversation that this year is actually the 20th year of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, kind of founded this, and they're rolling it out. So good time to talk about cybersecurity, certainly in the dealership world, and how we can kind of take action to prevent issues. But I wanted to start, if you don't mind, I guess maybe first give a little background on yourself. Kind of what you do, how long you've been with Reynolds, and then we can dive in from there.
Yeah, sure. So I've been with Reynolds 13 years. It'll be 13 years next month.
Okay.
And started out in our network operations center doing monitoring and kind of cabling things, installing servers, stuff like that, racking and stacking, and moved from there through a couple of our IT organization teams into our information security team, and I've been doing that for about 10 years now. And now I'm the one of the supervisors of our Security Operations Center. We do a lot of the monitoring, implementation of technologies, response when incidents or security events happen, and just kind of keeping fresh, keeping a good eye and good pulse, or our fingers on the pulse, to kind of keep things updated, ready to go, and ready to respond.
Yeah, so you've seen a lot over the years.
Yeah.
Safe to say.
And you mentioned that it's 20 years of cybersecurity, and a lot has changed. 20 years ago to now, it's a completely different landscape.
Yeah, I mean, 20 years ago, you could, well, at least I thought it probably wasn't the case, but you could download or buy the CD-ROM for your antivirus each year, right?
Yeah,
You'd be protected and you're good to go.
Yep, exactly.
Not exactly the case anymore.
No, those have gone by the wayside.
So let's talk a little bit. I'm curious personally, somebody with your background and kind of knowledge, thinking about cybersecurity, and we'll get into the dealership world in a second, but
Sure.
On a personal level too. In a world where, I don't know, I think about cybersecurity, I think about a PC, right?
Yeah.
But I have an iPhone, and I have this, and I have that, and everybody's got a phone in their pocket, right?
Yeah.
And you click links on stuff all the time that you may not put as much diligence into thinking about as you do on a computer with a mouse.
Yep.
So I was hoping to talk a little bit about what you can do or things to look out for, maybe from a personal perspective.
Yeah.
I have this, we call it an issue, but this issue right now where I can't stop getting text messages for people trying to sell me health insurance, which I don't need.
Yep.
So I don't know where it came from, right? Did I do something, or did something happen? But I don't know, maybe just some of those things that we can look out for as people to make sure that our devices are safe and other things aren't impacted, because I mean everything's on your phone, right?
Everything. Yep.
I mean, especially financial stuff, Venmo and banks and credit cards and all that.
Yeah, mobility is the key word, and mobility comes at the cost of your data being scattered all over the internet, right?
Yeah.
So you have a bunch of different services. You have your banking, shopping, chat stuff, social media, those types of things, and as a result, you have a lot of different information that's spread over a lot of different platforms. So the name of the game basically boils down to controlling your data. And there are ways you can control it. There are also ways that are things that are outside of your control. So to your text messaging thing, there are a lot of companies who make a lot of money selling, reselling, repackaging data to be sent off to other guys who repackage and use it, and
Sure.
resell it. So in those instances, your phone number is probably part of that from any number of services you signed up for, and you're going to get those texts. It's unfortunate, but I would say generally, you can't not share your phone number on a lot of different platforms.
Sure.
So at the end of the day, getting those text messages, if you have a spam filter on your phone, or service providers like iMessage or Google Android messages have spam filtering and those types of things. Let those things do their thing, report as spam, do that. But that would fall into, I think, a lot of I can't necessarily control all of that, right?
Okay.
You're going to get marketing emails, you're going to get phishing emails, these things are going to happen. So control the data that you can, and control it in a way that you can. So, when you're signing up for stuff, signing up for a new website, or, go to a new shopping place, go to, Temu or whatever the big new thing is, wish.com, right? Really think, what am I submitting? What am I giving these people? What am I giving this company? And do I need to do that? So, awesome new deal. You get a pair of jeans for $1 sent over from wherever, and when they say, hey, we'll send you a pair of jeans for $1, great. Sign up to this website, give us your credit card information, your email address, and your address. We'll send it over to you. Okay, so it's $1, and think of what you're giving versus what they're giving, right? You're giving your credit card information, you're giving your name, address, you're getting marketing statistics, right? And those type of analytics to that company, and in exchange, they're giving you a pair of jeans that are going to fall apart in a month, and for $1, and that's that, right? So your data is very valuable, and it's a lot more valuable than generally people treat it online. So the things you can't control, all that reselling and all that stuff, happens because of things you can control, which are giving your data to people who may not need it, sticking to distributing your stuff out. Anyone who asks, right? All the new stuff, sign up for all the new social media, sharing online. So you don't need to necessarily do all that. And if you kind of keep things tight and don't sign up for all these newsletters, don't sign up for all the social media, right? You should be able to lessen the impact of data resellers, of bad guys getting your data, and then the results of that, phishing emails, attempted breaches, scams, those types of things.
Yeah. So what's the personal impact? You mentioned a phishing email, right?
Yeah.
I want to get into that in a little bit on the business side. And when we think about it on the business side, right, I click on a link in an email, and again, I want to talk to you about it because I'm a little fuzzy. But
yeah, sure.
You basically give somebody access to a network, in one example, right, to your PC, where you can access the network, and then other information can be destroyed or blocked or whatever the case might be. But from a personal perspective, what's at risk? Is there anything where the text messages are annoying, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But that's about it. It's annoying. The phone calls that we get are annoying, but that's it.
Yeah.
On a personal device, a phone, a PC, a tablet, what else, if anything, is actually at risk by clicking on a link in a phishing email, as an example?
Yeah, for sure. So if you think about the physical world, as it exists today, or even 20, 40, 30 years ago, you have a mailbox, right? You get your mail coming in, right? Someone could steal mail out of your mailbox, right?
Sure.
You have a house, someone could break into your house. You might have money, valuables in your house. Those are all physical things. You have a car, gets you places. A phone, in the house, you can call people from. All those things also exist digitally right now. So your mail, your phone, your voice, right? Your identity, your financial information, your ability to transact business, those are all online as well. So if someone wants to break into your house, if they want to steal your mail, if they want to call someone from your phone and act like you, right? They don't have to do all that physically now. They can do it online. So what's at risk is anything that you can think of that comes through your email, that comes through any of your social media, right? Someone could impersonate you on social media. Someone could conduct financial transactions in your name through identity theft. They could text you, or they can text other people from your phone if they have your contacts, and say, hey, this is so-and-so, and hey, I'm in a bind, can you send me $20 on Venmo, right? It doesn't have to be big, huge things, but people live on their phones, people live using their digital identities. So not to be too grandiose about it, but
right.
It's your life online, and so that's what's at risk.
Okay, all right. So let's shift then. That's good. I'm processing a little bit, obviously, but sure. I want to shift into the business world. That's really kind of the crux of our conversation. So thinking about that same thing from a dealership, our audience. What's at risk? How does that change? I guess when you think about a business on a network, maybe multiple stores are connected.
Yeah.
What then are kind of the potential negatives or the impact that can have? Yeah,
for sure. If you if you think about, hey, this is how I transact my life, this is what I do, all digitally for personal use, right? A lot of that moves over to the business side too, right? Business is transacted online, business is all done online. If you think about, or social media marketing, email marketing, online transactions, communication between vendors, between customers, those types of things, online reputation. All those things exist in the digital world and have a pretty significant impact on your business.
Yeah.
So if you think, everything that's digital, can I exist as a business without it, or can I exist if there's a severe information impact or criminal impact to those things, right? Can your business exist solely in the brick and mortar world, by phone call and by mail and people walking in and out? And it's a pretty tough sell to say that for a lot of businesses, right? They need their social media, they have their reputation online, they have reviews online, and they transact business online, right? Emails come back and forth, pay a vendor, those types of things. Customers email in, hey, can I get a deal on this car? That's what's at risk. It's a lot of different facets.
Yeah. One of the things that I hear stories about a lot, that's terrifying, and I don't know how common it is ransomware.
Yep.
Right. So somebody sends you a phishing email, right? Which phishing email, for definition purposes, at least from my layman's perspective, is an email that looks like it's coming from a reputable source, and it may have reputable instructions on it. You click a link, and it either from that link will download something onto your computer or send you to a website that'll download something to your computer. So then locally you have software, essentially malware, running on your computer that could essentially provide access to someone to your PC and everything that's connected to. Yeah. So at a high level, is my layman's understanding pseudo accurate?
Yeah, I'd say the first part's perfect. So it's a scam email, basically, right? Yeah. And then what what they're trying to do is get you to do something.
Right.
So that's the basics of it, right? And do something might be, install this thing. It might be sign into this thing. It might be even like, hey, send me a text message to this phone number. I'm your boss. Send me a text message. I have something important to talk to you about, right? Mm-hmm. Or give me a call. I'd like to talk to you on the phone. So it's just the initial intrusion point that could go any different way, but at the end of the day, they're trying to get you to do X, which is send them money, install something for them to monitor your computer, give them your password, any of those things.
Okay, so then what, right? So take it to the next step, and what I'm getting to is this whole idea of ransomware. But I'm trying to understand how it works, right? Yeah. If you're a bad guy, I'm a good guy. You send me an email, I click on a link, and it does something. Like what does it do? What are the mechanics of how someone would ultimately, like what actions would be taken by a criminal? So
in a ransomware scenario, you get that initial phishing email that says, hey, hey Greg, this is your insurance provider. I just need you to update these forms. Okay. Okay, click on this link. I'll get you the forms. So you click on the link, and maybe instead of going to the insurance company website, it sends you to this other website that says download the forms here. Okay. Now, if you're thinking of insurance, super insurance company, right, as a brand name, instead of going to super insurance company, you go to superinsurancecompany.com, right? Lookalike domain is what they're called, and it's meant to fool you into thinking, I think I'm at the right site. Mm-hmm. So when you go there, click on the download forms page, download a form, what you think is a form, open it up, and to the end user, if you're looking at the screen, nothing might happen, right? And it's not going to be the laughing skull, or it's not your computer's not going to melt, right, or anything, and like the Hollywood stuff. You probably won't see anything. Maybe you might see something pop for a second, and then that's it, right? Yeah. On the background, though, a lot of different stuff is going on. A lot of the stuff is automated 90% of the way. So in the background, what's happening is things are getting installed. You're getting backdoors installed on your computer for someone to remotely access your computer. It might be checking what kind of files.
Pause you there. So how does that work?
Yeah, sure.
So for somebody that isn't familiar with somebody logging into your computer, a backdoor, like you mentioned, what is that, a piece of software? What is that?
Yep. Yeah. It's a piece of software that allows someone to access your computer. It might be using something that's already built into the computer, just not activated or set up yet. Okay. Or it might be using an entirely different or novel piece of software that allows someone to access it. It might be something where on the other end, they're just looking at lines of code they can type in, or it might be something where it's a full-fledged picture of your desktop that can watch you in real time, moving your mouse around and stuff like that. So yeah, they're seeing that. and more importantly, they can do stuff to your computer. Mentioned the automated part, so a lot of that's automated, going through its checks, might reach out, grab files from here or there on the internet, on websites that the bad guy controls.
Okay.
Different packages to install or to configure the end ransomware package on your computer.
Yeah.
Now, once it gets to a certain point, it's going to check in with the bad guy's website somewhere out in the world and say, hey, I got one on the hook. I got a live one. And bad guy sees that notification, and, best case scenario for you, he sees it, he's doing other stuff. Maybe he doesn't worry about it, doesn't care about it, and then that's it, right? Worst case scenario, of course, is that he sees it and says, great, this is a prime target, and let's get this. That's what we call hands-on keyboard. So when someone's actually typing and on the other end doing things to your computer. At that point, he would execute the ransomware package, and that's when you see what happens, right? Okay. That's when the user's notified of, oh no, something's gone wrong, right? So, your icons are changing on your desktop, your document icons are changing. You may get a big pop-up, or your wallpaper changes and it says the whole spiel about, you owe us Bitcoin, you owe us dollars, send money to this guy. And at that point, right, you've probably been compromised a while, right? You've probably been compromised maybe a week, maybe a few days, maybe even longer. And it was just you're on the attacker's timeline. At that point, you're kind of stuck, and that's the end game right there.
So how does that work? Do they adjust like permissions where you can't access things? So I log into my PC, right, with my username and my password.
Yep.
And in a normal safe world, I have access to certain things. I don't have access to other things.
Yeah.
And that's controlled by, a universal kind of IT team with roles and permission settings. Is it effectively the same thing? It's just the hacker, in this case, or the bad guy, is controlling permissions. Is that essentially what's happening, or are they stripping data out, or what's going on?
Yeah, I really wish it were that, because as an end user, you generally will have admin on your own computer,
right,
and you have basically super control of everything. So if it were that simple, Microsoft could make some adjustments. Microsoft could release a tool. Antivirus could release a tool. Any of your vendors could release a tool saying, hey, let's just undo those changes.
Right.
Unfortunately, the reality of it is that it uses pretty, in most cases, strong encryption. So, scrambling around the data, encrypting it, right, using the attacker's key, like a password that is pretty strong, and then encrypting all that data to where it's unreadable by the computer. So you try to click on it, won't work. If you do try to adjust permissions, you should have full permission over the file still. You have administrative permissions. You can delete, move, whatever. But it's encrypted, so the data inside that file is just kind of scrambled around and requires a key to be applied to it. And more often than not, the encryption that's applied to the files is strong enough to where, encryption strength now is in a pretty strong spot to where you need significant resources to crack stuff. So, let's say you have a $10,000 encryption cracking machine, might still take you, a year, 20 years, 50 years mathematically to crack that encryption.
Mm-hmm.
So, practically it's not possible to crack the encryption unless you have the key. And, sometimes the FBI, they bust people, or, any of the law enforcement agencies around the world, Microsoft, Google, these guys, they get busted, submit the keys. Hey, we have the keys. We got the keys for all the ransomware. And then, people can decrypt their stuff. But
Sure.
More often than not, if your stuff is encrypted, you're kind of out of luck for that data that sits right there.
Yeah.
Hopefully you have a backup. Or, hopefully you don't need the data. So,
Sure.
Yeah, if you're talking, hey, let's go decrypt this, not probably an option. Dealing with the bad guys could be an option. Obviously, you don't want to necessarily do that. You're at the mercy of criminals, right? You pay them $10, they might say, give me 100, and then give me 1,000, right? So, best case scenario, you have a backup of the data, or you don't need the data.
Mm-hmm.
Just kiss it goodbye, wipe your computer. start fresh, and then just try to forget it ever happened.
Yeah.
But worst case scenario, you have valuable stuff that's locked away with keys that someone controls, halfway across the world that you don't have any chance of getting unless you bow to their requests, and that's really it.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. So backups, that's an important step.
Correct. Yeah. Having backups, anything that you don't ever want to lose, have a backup of it somewhere, right? Have a backup of it online, have a backup of it on another computer, use tools that are available within whatever you're using. So, Google Photos has a backup solution, right? Send it out there. Apple Photos, iCloud, like those types of things have backup mechanisms in them.
Right.
And you're probably not going to be attacked by super big bad ransomware guy, right? He wants to attack people with a lot of money. He doesn't want, for all that he's doing, right? He's sending you this malware. You send malware out. Antivirus companies see it, right? They develop detection mechanisms and defense mechanisms, right? So you may be burning one of your really cool tricks, and so there's a risk on the attacker's part to attack you. So when you're doing that, he wants a big target. He wants a big juicy target.
But you think about a dealership, right? With 1, 2, 5, 30 stores.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of data.
Yeah.
Right. And it seems to be a pretty prime target.
Yeah.
So thinking about that, you mentioned, backups is definitely one piece of that. Obviously, DMS data, anything that is out there that you need to operate your business.
Yeah, for sure.
That if you didn't have, you'd kind of be out of luck.
Yeah.
So making sure that you have backups really daily.
Yeah.
I would assume, right?
Yeah. So have a plan on your backups. Know where your data is, what data you have.
Yeah.
And then, make some reasonable determination on where your backup strategy is at and how you want to implement that. Can you live without a week of that data? Maybe. Okay, weekly backups. Do you want to do daily small backups and do 1 week, weekly big backup, 1 monthly big backup?
Mm-hmm.
How does offsite work, right? You think about backups, not necessarily in the hacker got all your stuff way, but hey, what happens if your building catches fire, heaven forbid, or there's a flood, or there's your building gets hit by lightning and your electric is fried, right? So a bunch of different things could happen that are probably more plausible than a ransomware guy, but that affect your data all the same, right? Your data is unusable if all your hard drives are underwater. Your data is unusable if your hard drives are burnt up, or if someone has the only password to it and they quit.
Sure.
Yeah. So those types of scenarios all require a robust backup solution. Something you need to sit down, plan for, and plan for the physical, plan for the logical, the electronic, the digital.
Yeah.
And once you have a solid strategy of those two, then you're in a pretty good spot. It's going to hurt if you have to restore, and it's going to be disruptive to the business, but nowhere near as painful or as disruptive if you lose all your data, obviously.
Right. So what does that process look like to restore your data? In my head, with no experience doing this, it's all right, hit download and restore and you roll. Obviously, that's not the case though. So what does that look like? If and when, because we're talking about backups, so we're assuming that at some point something's going to happen, right? That's why you have the backup so that you can then restore. But when you have to go to restore, what does that look like? What does that process look like? What does it feel like?
Yeah, sure. Depends on the backup solution, but the general idea is that you're going to go into your backup application, let's call it, and if you're restoring, say, individual files, or if you're restoring a computer's worth of files, say your documents folder, right? You're going to go into that backup solution and say, hey, what do you want to restore from when? And we say, I want the most recent backup of my documents folder. Go in there, pull it out. And, however many gigabytes it is, terabytes it is, it's going to, transfer over to your computer if it's over the network, or if someone has a disk or a USB that they want to transfer it with. If you have like a USB hard drive and you just take it over, plug it in, right, pull all that stuff over. The backup solution, it's not necessarily, it's not really anything mysterious or magical or anything. It's transferring files from this place to that place, applying in best case scenario, right, you want to do it implying some level of encryption so that if someone steals that, right, implying some level of encryption, and then it has innately in it some level of robustness. So like, I have a tape backups are still a thing, right? Tape backups are robust. They last a long time. They don't degrade. So I have a tape that holds a lot of data. I'm going to go ahead and lock it in a vault. Easy peasy. So yeah, when it's time to undo that, just take the tape, plug it into your machine, say, I want my documents folder from 2 months ago, and put that back on my computer. Takes an hour or 2, 10 minutes, depending on how much, and then you're good to go.
Okay. All right. So what about not assuming somebody gets in, right? How do we protect? What are other things we can do to keep security issues from happening in the first place, right? So cybersecurity is a big deal. Backups are great. You assume that at some point somebody's going to make a mistake, right?
Yeah.
So you got 1,000 people in your organization. Somebody's going to get in a hurry at some point in time and click something they shouldn't have, and it's going to be a really bad day.
Yeah.
But to your point, it's only a bad day for a little while. You can kind of restore everything. You have the data from last week, and but it's a little painful, but it's not crippling.
Yeah.
So that's good. But what if, how do we prevent that pain, right? How do we even not get there?
Well, let me introduce you to another scary scenario, which is that the concept of ransomware, the concept of malware on your computer, of remote control of your computer, exists still today, and we see headlines for it all the time. Big hospital or big company, right, attacked by ransomware, shut down by the bad guys. Not great, right? But one of the biggest attack surfaces that we see, one of the biggest risky things we see is identity, and specifically cloud identity.
Okay.
Before, if we think about intrusion into your network, and we talked about the history of cybersecurity a little bit, so this kind of harkens back to, back in my day, not to be an old man about it, but there used to be the concept of everything's kind of on the corporate network. So your email's on the corporate network, and all your applications are on the corporate network. And if someone wanted to get to it, they had to get into your building, they had to get on your computer, or they had to remote control your computer from somewhere else. And once they're in the network, then once they're on your computer, they're in the network, and then they can do all their nefarious things, right? But we discussed mobility too, right? For personal use, and mobility crosses over to business, right?
Well, sure, everybody's got their email on their phone.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they live in it, right?
Sure.
So that extends, that's your email, right? But then that's also cloud apps, right? So, I'm getting bigger performance, bigger scalability, and bigger capability out of, Google Apps or Microsoft Azure or Microsoft Outlook Online than I am on-prem. I don't have to maintain a server. I don't have to do all this stuff. I don't have to worry about fire, flood, those types of things, right? Because it's all somewhere else. Microsoft has more money than me, personally, definitely. but yeah, they have more money than they can do all those things. They can do all the backups for you, and it's very enticing. So cloud, exists. Your applications are in the cloud. Your identity is in the cloud. Now, what that means is, right, I don't have to get into your network. I don't have to get into your corporate network and attack your servers and your this or that. A Microsoft Outlook online login page, or maybe your cloud application login page, is internet accessible, right? Anyone in the world can log in if they have a username or password.
Sure.
Yep. So that's the new kind of frontier. That's the new big risk attack surface of cybersecurity. It's cloud identity. That means, when I get in there, I'm in your email. If you live in your email, if you do all your business or the significant portion of it through email, then, I can act as you. I can, send emails to you, or I can send emails to your colleagues as you. I can transact business, reset passwords, right? All your cloud applications are, they might have password resets that go to your email. You might have information saved in your email. You might have information saved that you should. You might have that you shouldn't, right?
Right.
So, when someone gets access to all that, they have, free reign to do whatever. So, the ransomware is a scenario, and for every big attack against X company or whatever that makes the news, there's innumerable attacks, right, that aren't millions or hundreds of millions, or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're $10,000 transactions, $40,000 transactions, $800 transactions that occur through email when someone controls your cloud identity. So I'll give you a quick rundown of what that looks like.
Sure.
So you get a phishing email, right? Same intrusion as your ransomware, but this time you go to a website, got superinsurancecompany.com. It might not say, hey, download this thing. It might say, hey, can you please log in using your Microsoft account? We've changed how we log in. And you're like, okay, that's fine. Try to log in. Now, what that website is entirely hacker controlled. And you go and log in, and it may say, sorry, your login doesn't work, or you don't have permission to it at this time, right? Try to log in a few times, nothing works. And then you might go back and reply to the email and say, hey, this doesn't work. Can you guys fix this? And then, move on about your day,
right,
and forget about it.
But basically, you just submitted a form to send to somebody with your username and ID, or your username and password.
Yep, your username and password just got sent to the bad guys. He's got it into database now.
Right.
And he's sitting in a database of this many passwords, right? And he can go in and kind of do whatever. So they're going to get into your email and scope things out. Who are you, right? If you spend...
Now, is that done? Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's right.
So is that done manually? Like, are there people that are doing this, or is it, because in my head it's like that's not scalable, right?
Yeah.
So is there also the opportunity for software to do this on behalf of a person?
Yeah. So when you're trying to learn kind of who someone is through their email, it is a very manual process.
Right.
They're using, you can search in your email. There's a lot of powerful tools to manage search, figure things out within your email. You can set up rules, perform searches, send email in bulk fashion, right? So those type of automated tools all exist. But we see that you do have someone on the other side who's manually creeping around in your email.
So the scale, is it fair to say the scale comes from the canvas of the email, and then there's going to be some small percentage of those folks that end up clicking on that link and submitting their username and password. So then from a scalability perspective, you're able to have a 1-to-1 or 1-to-5 or whatever the number is relationship where that one person can do that. Is that a good kind of correlation?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways you can kind of achieve scale. Attacks, gathering information for attacks, gathering usernames and passwords, gathering likely targets, those types of things can be done in an automated way. You have your bad sites set up, and then you have your emails going out, right, asking for usernames and passwords sent from compromised email addresses. And then you have all those things. You have targets you're gathering, computer names, people names, email addresses, passwords, all that stuff, all happening automated. But at the end of the day, you still have a requirement or a need for someone on the keyboard that's able to look in there and see who is this guy and what does he do, or what is this company. They do the reconnaissance, and that's all performed generally manually. You have some tools that you can say, I can go look this up or perform these lookups, look up this domain. What does this company do?
Yeah.
How much money do they have? So all those things. But a lot of times, these guys go into it blind. You see a lot of big attacks where ransomware group will perform an attack. They didn't have any idea necessarily what this company was or what it does. They're just asking for, hey, give me money. I don't really care. And then that's it. So manual review of who you are. So they're reading emails just as you are. And then they're able to kind of inject themselves into whatever they need to. If they want to send an email as you to a colleague, as an example, we've seen this many times. There's an invoice that needs to be paid. So you get an invoice in your email box, needs to be paid. Okay, easy. And attacker might take that invoice that comes in, that bill, he'll squirrel it away in a different folder. You can't see it, so you didn't see it. Okay, he replies as you and sends it off to an accountant or accounts payable or whoever and says, hey, these guys need to be paid, but also, by the way, they changed their payment information and it needs to be sent to this new bank account instead of their old one. If accounting comes back, if they look at that email and say, that's so-and-so's email address, that's coming from internal to the network, right? If you have a banner on your email that says, hey, watch out, this comes from outside the network, it wouldn't be that in this case because that's really that person's email, right?
Yeah.
So they see it, they say, accounts payable might say, sure, go for it. Yeah, it's paid, sends it back to so-and-so. Attacker might squirrel that confirmation away, and you may not know till a month or two later when that company says, hey, this is past due, do you mind paying us? Oh, I already paid that,
Right.
And now you're kind of in a pickle. But it's been a month, it's been 2 months, and that guy's long gone if he hasn't done it again. He may kind of combine things, financial fraud, and then send out a bunch of phishing emails from your address. So yeah, it's what we see. There's the ransomware component of it. There's the big hack component, the big breach component of it. But then there's just the daily, everyday, hey, I'm going to steal $800, $1,000, $10,000, $15,000.
Yeah. All right. So you've thoroughly kind of scared me.
Yeah.
No, I mean, seriously, it's kind of just, it's crazy how, not simple, but how plausible, how possible this stuff is.
Yeah.
So tactically, how do you keep it from happening? I mean,
sure.
Realistically, if I'm a dealership, right, and I have 200 employees, 500 employees, 1,000 employees, generally there's a weak link somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do I minimize that risk? How do I keep this stuff from happening? Because it's pretty scary.
Yeah. So my job is information security. I live and breathe it. Right. This is what I do every day. And I go home and research, and I got labs, and I'm doing this nerd stuff, all the time. And my kid's like, "Why are you such a nerd?" And so that's what I do, right? But not everyone does that. The vast majority of people don't do that, right? They're doing business, right? They're selling cars.
Yeah.
They're doing accounting. They're answering phones. They're setting up meetings, like all this stuff that's important to the flow of business. But they don't necessarily have the time to be the weirdo in the lab doing all the stuff, right? And so one of the first things we need is just a basic protection package for that organization, right? So you have to make sure you have endpoint protection. That's like your antivirus, anti-malware stuff. You have your good firewalls, right? Email filtering for phishing and spam, web filtering to make sure no one's clicking on the wrong stuff. And those types of protections in place, network monitoring, all those tools, right? So you need a good partner, unless you're doing it yourself, that's going to be able to have a solid suite of protections that are going to give you just the basic layer. Mm-hmm. So we like to use the term called defense in depth, right? If you think about it like the movie Home Alone, where the kid's trying to keep the bad guys from coming into the house, right? He has, when guys try to open the doorknob's hot and it burns their hand, but they can still kick the door open, but then they're sliding around on marbles and, it's like a whole thing. So every step of the way, before they can get the kid or rob the house, there's a new challenge that they have to get through, a new filter that's going to keep them out. And that's how we look at defense in depth. So you have endpoint protection on your system, which is going to stop people from installing malware on your system and viruses on your system. But before that even, right, email is a huge vector for that malware. If you can keep it from coming into your email, you don't have to worry about your computer and so on and so forth. So that's your basic. You need a basic suite of protections for your environment. Second would be MFA, multi-factor authentication.
So it's not just an annoying thing that I have to do for all of my all of my apps that I have?
It is, yeah. It can be annoying, yes. And you will have to do it, yeah. But it serves a real purpose. Yeah. And when we talk about, the cloud identity, right? So the ransomware thing, sure, you have endpoint protection, you have email filtering, you have network monitoring, all this other stuff. People aren't be able to go to bad websites. Great, perfect. Ransomware, has a challenge with that. Now it comes to what's going on in your cloud identity, right? If I steal your password by installing malware on your computer and doing all this complicated hacker stuff, that's one way to go about things. But I could also ask you for your password, right? You're probably going to say no, and 1,000 people are going to say no. But out of those 1,001, maybe that one person says yes, right? And that's effectively what they're doing. They're just, hey, can I use your password? And they say, sure, inadvertently, right? But that's not necessarily, if I have a username and password, that doesn't. And I log into my email, that's not necessarily a red flag event, right? So it's, hey, I logged into my email. I used the right username. I used the correct password. I didn't use any techie wizardry to do it. And that's that. So how do we keep a handle on that? How do we prevent someone who has your username and password from logging? And that's what MFA is for.
Yeah, well, and even the example you gave earlier about resetting your password.
Yep.
Right. So you get that text message or whatever that's, hey, this is your security code. So in order to actually reset your password, you have to have that security code as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a pretty tangible example of just like, somebody could get your username or your email address and click reset password. And if they have access to your email where they logged in, if they have that and you don't have MFA set up, then it's done, right?
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
in.
Yep.
Versus if you do, you have that extra layer of protection where they also have to have your phone, right? Or
exactly.
Have your phone number forwarded to them or something like that. But
yep.
It's definitely a much more protected way to go about things.
Yeah. You need that other factor. You need a fingerprint. You need this.
Sure.
You need that, right? And the bad guy doesn't always have that, right? So it's a way to keep them out. Usernames and passwords get leaked all the time. That's just a reality of our world. Those lists are sold to other lists or sold to other lists, and that breach data exists probably forever, if not for a very long time.
Right.
So those things they got, you got, and that's it. It's out there. So how do we put another layer on that, right? It's having a key and a deadbolt secondary key. It's two things, right? So MFA important, and have that really anywhere that you care to protect, honestly. If it's important, if it's accessible over the cloud, or if you think someone can get onto it or get access to it, then it needs to be protected by MFA. So that includes, like your email login needs MFA, obviously. But if you're in a store and you have systems that will face people, right, that might not be attended all the time, a customer could very well walk over and start looking through your stuff, right? And if you don't want that, you need some kind of protection mechanism on that computer, right? So that could be username, password, that could be MFA, probably both, right? If they see the guy typing in his password is, alpha 123, and then he's like, I know his password. But then he walks away, he has his phone on him. You try to log in, and it dings over there, and he's like, what the heck? Looks over at you. And so having it there, MFA key. If you care about it, you should probably put MFA on it.
Yeah.
I would say the third is we have all these technological things that we can prevent. We have tech that stops things from happening, tech that keeps you safe. But there's another component of it. It's a human component. So if we're looking at say that you have a partner or you do it yourself, and you have this cool suite of tech. It's like the latest and greatest cool stuff. You have MFA everywhere. You're super hyped on it. You're really excited about this. I've got it. It's Fort Knox, right? Perfect. But if someone gives the bad guys to the key to Fort Knox, right? Yeah. Someone who's in Fort Knox and they're like, hey, here, bad guy can ask for it, right? Hey, can I have the key to Fort Knox? Yeah, sure, you go. Don't tell anyone. So you need to train your people and have good policies so that they're aware. Like I said, not everyone lives and breathes this stuff. Not a lot of people don't. It's very complicated, gross stuff to get into. Yeah. Give people a level of understanding that can really impact their day-to-day and is, actionable, clear, concise. This is, what to look for. Don't do this. Don't do this. Do this. Right. And have a comprehensive and solid training program. It doesn't have to be, 5 hours of dry content. People at the end of it, they're like, oh, I don't even remember anything. I just want to go home. Right. You have good, knowledge, concise, easy to understand training. Yeah. As well, you have good policies to stop the con stuff or stop stuff that might get through the technical controls because they're expected normal business behavior, but are things that make people stop and pause and go, should I do this or not? Yeah. If we look at the vendor payment that's intercepted, someone calls accounts payable and they say, hey, can we update our vendor payment information? It's this new bank account, right? If that's enough for them to make the change and send the money, that's probably not good enough. So if accounts payable or whoever takes a second to say, okay, our policy is we can make changes, that's fine, but we need to verify with a known source over on the other side. And we can call up Super Insurance and say, hey, we just got an email. You're my contact. I've talked to you before. Is this legit? And they say, no, don't do it. And then you say, okay, great, dodged a bullet, right? But changing account information is a normal and expected part of business that people can utilize for nefarious purposes.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good stuff. So you said, kind of your software safeguards, right? Yep. Your hardware safeguards, MFA, and training, education. So those education, are the three kind of pillars. Policies. It's good. Well, Ken, it's been a fun conversation. I want to be respectful of your time, though. So I don't know if there's anything else that we haven't touched on that you want to make sure we hit on today. And if not, that's fine. But obviously, if there's anything that we haven't touched on that we should, happy to.
I'd say we have all the tech stuff, which is really cool. That's like my jam. I love it. But there's an important part of it, and that's the compliance and regulation sphere of things. And those are, things like the FTC safeguards and other compliance and, regulations, whether they're industry regulations, whether they're law, government regulations that require you to do certain things. So if we're looking at things like FTC safeguards, they're requiring you to encrypt your data. They're requiring you to know where your data is and what data you have.
Right.
So all those things, they're not going to spell out, you need to have this type of encryption and it needs to be like this and this strong and these keys need to be stored there. They're not going to say that. They're going to say you need to encrypt your stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Which is an important starting point, jumping off point for security. They're going to have a whole bunch of requirements that say you need to encrypt your stuff, you need to do this, that. And when you see it, you say, I need MFA. Okay, I didn't realize that. I need MFA. I need to be encrypting stuff. I need to know where my data is and what data I have. Like, are we storing, scans of driver's license in our emails? Are we storing it am I writing down social security numbers on a pad and paper?
Yeah.
So those types of things will get you going, right? And there's the penalty for bad tech is that your business gets owned, right? It gets, intruded on by the bad guys. You lose a lot of money, et cetera, right? But then the penalty for noncompliance, right, to governments, there's, you're breaking the law or you're not allowed to use XYZ technology or use this vendor or whatever. Yeah. So
and fines.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, fines. So compliance is a tool to get you started and get you in the right frame of mind. In terms of the tech solutions of it. It's a critical part of business, obviously. If you're not in compliance, you can't do business. So critical part of business, something to think about. And if you combine that with the tech part of it, making sure you have a partner that does both, basically, that can tell you, hey, this is what you need compliance-wise to comply with that. You need these technologies. And not just the checkbox like, yeah, I did it, right? Mm-hmm. I installed a lock, but I gave everyone a key, right?
Yeah.
So, install the lock, but, your partner is going to be able to tell you, install the lock, but then, don't give everyone the key. Keep 2 copies of it. Keep one locked over here. Give one to this person. And, the tech side, we can implement that. So say, we have this technology. It'll keep your key safe. We're good to go. So, compliance just as easily an important part as technology. They go hand in hand.
Yeah. Good stuff. Well, Ken Wolf, thanks so much for talking today. This really was a fun conversation. Happy, I think, Cybersecurity Month. I don't know,
it keeps me up at night.
Yeah, it can be a little doom and gloom, but no, really good information. I definitely appreciate it. So thanks very much for hopping on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
That was a fun conversation with Ken Wolf, supervisor of our Security Operations Center here at Reynolds. Ken obviously has a ton of knowledge. Some of that conversation felt a little bit scary, I guess, for lack of a better word, but good information to prevent a lot of these issues that come with cybersecurity. So happy Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And before we hop off, don't forget you can watch or listen to all episodes of Connected on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify podcasts. Make sure to hit subscribe so you're notified every other week when new episodes are released. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.